Hello everyone, and welcome to round one of the 2013 Mopar Canadian National Road Racing Championships from Shannonville Motorsport Park in Ontario. I'm your series announcer, Frank Wood. In this episode, we highlight round one of the Honda CBR250R race series on Saturday, June the 8th. This national is presented by Honda Canada and by Mopar. Warm-up lap now for the Honda 250s as they head up. We're shooting actually from the, we're watching the camera shot rather from the hairpin as the riders on their warm-up lap, and we'll review a quick review of qualifying, Colin, as we watch the qualifiers from yesterday, from early this morning, I should say. We found that that man right there, Cameron Walker on the 112 machine, a young lad out of Oakville, Ontario, fast qualifier. You may remember, of course, at the end of last year at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, in his first appearance in the Canadian Superbike Series in the Honda CBR250 class, Walker put it on the podium with a fine third-place finish, and this is the kind of momentum that he wants to carry into 2013.
And as I recall, the only real issue there for a very, very good run at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park was a series of very poor starts. So it'd be interesting to see if over the winter, you know, had time to think about it. Sometimes you dig your way out, and sometimes you dig your way in.
Well, Walker's had an opportunity to test his mettle, if you will, in the Race Super Series, the regional series down here at Shannonville earlier. And I had occasion to have seen him a number of times at track days as well. So the kid's getting a lot of saddle time, Colin, and he's obviously improving with that saddle time.
Here we're rolling up to the starting grid, and of course what we'll see here is a very brief wait while they come under starters' orders. Start lights will all turn, and then off they will go. And it hasn't been great weather here at Shannonville, but it's fortunately dry, so no debate about tires or anything like that. And I believe that's the last of our people running out. That's Matt Chandler from Barrie. And once he takes his spot, you'll see Fred with the red flag move off the grid, and hopefully we'll be underway and no problems at the start.
Chandler, a young lad out of Barrie, Ontario, making his first appearance on the national tour. And now as they roll up onto the starting line, they're under starters' orders. We noted, Colin, we have 7 starters in this. Some people may think that's a bit of a light touch, but when Honda CBR125 racing started, we started with 5. And of course, here we talk about quality, not quantity. Riders now under starters' orders. Csbk officials are keeping an eye on that starting line, make sure nobody jumps. Walker's to your the extreme right of the track. He's on the 112 machine, and Thomas Kazaz on the number 46. He was the second fastest qualifier. It's Kazaz. He's pulled the trigger first. Oh boy, he has really jumped out in front there, and it looks like Walker on the 112 machine filing in behind him there as they head up now into turn 2, and Walker falling a little bit further behind. Kazaz is really pulling this one out on the first lap already, Colin. It looks like, I would say, 12 to 15 bike lengths.
That was a heck of a hole shot, and I think everybody was concerned that Kazaz might be hard to beat. Qualifying suggested it would be a good race, but right now he has put his head down immediately, and this is an impressive start. Remember, these bikes are extremely evenly matched. Very little difference in performance, very little differences allowed, and look at this as we come onto the back straight and unleash 26 horsepower.
Well, the phrase is he puts his head down, but Kazaz is doing exactly that. His head is going right down below the plexiglass. When he gets into the corners, he's hanging way off the motorcycle, and again, his head is going down. He's keeping that center of gravity, it seems, low. Walker now tagged in behind him. It looks like he's going to maybe try a pass.
A little bit early, I think, Frank. There's no urgency at this early stage, and remember, this is the first national. I think everybody's thinking points, right? I think the field will fill out. We'll probably see more Hondas later in the year, so all these guys are going to have a real jump in terms of the championship. But look at Kazaz through the S has definitely made some time.
He is a master on brakes, coming through Allen's corner now, and Walker desperate to keep him within stabbing distance as they run 1-2 here, and it looks like these two rabbits might be getting away from the pack of hounds, as they say, Colin, as they have established a pretty good lead as we record lap number 1 of 10. 9 more to go.
Here we go heading into turn 1, and that's 7 or 8 bike lengths. So I would say that Walker's keeping our leader honest, but they have gotten clear. I don't know, that's another roughly 3 seconds, Frank. And for this class, I mean, we sometimes had 3 seconds over 7 or 8 bikes last year at the end of the race.
Indeed. And Walker, again, under a great deal of pressure to try to make up that distance, running in second spot now. As we've already noted, he doesn't have a great deal of horsepower to deal with, so it's more bravery on brakes and maintaining momentum around the corners, which they seem very capable of doing.
Coming here onto the back straight, and you need to really time it all right. I know these bikes don't have crazy horsepower, but you still have to get a nice smooth launch, get the power down, no drama, and then of course get underneath that fairing. And here again, Walker is in the ideal situation to slipstream, and generally speaking, this will tow him back up towards the leader and help him make up those few bike lengths he was working on.
The kids learn so much in this racing. You know, you talk about getting the slipstream. That's something that comes in real handy in superbike racing as well. But it is vital in Honda CBR250R racing. You've got to get into that soft air if you want to stay with the rider in front of you. And again, it is Kazaz over Walker. And if I'm not mistaken, this young lad out of Peterborough, Ontario is starting to stretch it out just a tad.
Well, I think last lap, we've only done 2 so far this season, but last lap we definitely saw that Kazaz had an edge at the S's. I think he's a little more aggressive through there, and that's going to be tough on Walker. He's going to have to make it up on the back straight every time, because if Kazaz has a couple of good clean runs in the S's, that may be enough. And here we watch Walker, who's probably about a second back, and that's a significant amount in CBR 250R racing.
Seen a couple of young brothers out there as well, the young Bauer boys out of Breslau, Ontario. Dylan Bauer on the number 40 machine and Jordan Bauer on the number 211 machine, and their father Luke Bauer at trackside cheering them on. I mentioned first-timers in our national series, Colin. I point out the number 77 machine of Samuel Durasak out of Ottawa, Ontario. He's making his first appearance on the tour as well and doing well.
And here we see Kazaz launching his way onto the back straight for the 3rd time, and I think that is a significant margin at this point, Frank. I don't necessarily know Walker will be able to tow his way back into contention again. This may be the crucial lap from the point of view of Kazaz, and of course we saw a lot of terrific riding from him last year, some very aggressive performances, and he's not having to ride demonstratively aggressively, but he is getting clear.
I'm starting to see some movement now from Jacob Austin. He's starting to come into my field of vision more often as we watch him, especially down the back straightaway. He seems to be closing up. He seems to be very good on the brakes heading into turn 11. And we'll see if we can pick him up on our TV coverage camera here as we watch our race leader, Thomas Kazaz, coming out onto the front straightaway. He's getting that pit board signal from his dad, letting him know exactly who's behind him. There you could see coming out of the final turn there is Jacob Austin, and it looks like he's making up some time on Cameron Walker.
And I think if Walker is being a little careful, maybe is willing to think about second right now, that may not be a good move, because I think Austin is sensing a little caution up there, and sometimes that motivates you, right? You see the guy in front of you get just that bit closer, and you think, okay, I'm going to keep pushing, because that target ahead is so important in racing, and if you think even you're gaining a portion of a second, that's enough to keep you motivated.
No question about it. Jacob Austin is definitely closing now on Cameron Walker as we watch them come out of the hairpin and make their way down the back straightaway. There he is right there in the white and black leathers, trying to get a tow and see if he can close up on him. But Kazaz seems to be getting more distance away from Walker. Jacob Austin seems to be closing right back up on the tail end of Walker. I think he's going to have his hands full here in a minute.
Well, if you saw that exit onto the back straight, Austin really pushed. Everybody's been pretty conservative with the curbs. With these bikes, you want to be careful with your momentum. You want to preserve your speed. Getting really aggressive frequently doesn't add to your pace, but in this particular instance, I think Austin was very aggressive, and it seems to be showing it. And like I said, I think he's motivated because he's catching him second place just a little tiny bit, but in this class, a little tiny bit is a lot, and it's a motivator. And here we see the two guys who look like they're going to have a race soon.
I'm going to suggest that perhaps the frustration that Cameron Walker might be feeling. We talked to him after his qualifying effort, and he was supremely confident going into the national championship. And quite honestly, the start by Thomas Kazaz in this race caught me off guard. I did not expect that from the little guy.
Yeah, the problem for me, Frank, is that Kazaz was just so fast so many times last year, and it didn't always go well, and his strategy wasn't great early on because he was kind of new to national racing, but his pace was there consistently, and he had a lot of really strong races. So not to take away from anyone else in the field, but that Kazaz would be hammered down right off the bat fits in with what we saw, particularly in the second half of last season.
Race leaders are now coming up on a lapper. That would be Matt Chandler, the young lad out of Barrie, Ontario. Again, we mentioned he's making his first appearance on the tour. This is a learning curve of course, for Chandler, and our race leaders will have to be very, very careful when they catch up to that lapper. I'm not sure where we might expect that they might catch him, but if it's in somewhere like the S's or going into Allen's, that could really change the drama in this race.
There you can see Walker heading through the S's. That's basically one line, even with these relatively low horsepower motorcycles. So if you don't want to catch lap traffic in that part, because you'll have to give up a lot of momentum, and in this class momentum is king, and the best riders are the ones who do the least amount of braking and the smoothest transitions, work those Pirelli spec tires the most consistently. You can see there's the halfway flags out, Frank, so we're pretty far into this one, and I think Austin's going to really have to get the hammer down, right? He's closing, but he needs to get aggressive or he's not going to get there.
Well, he's new to this game too, so he's got to play this game properly. You know full well if you take the wrong line in one of these corners and get the wrong drive, you're just not in the game. You're going to lose 2-3 bike lengths in mere seconds. Now up on the lap rider, first of all, it's Kazaz who's gotten through. Now Walker's passed him. The young Chandler rider, Matt Chandler, on the number 18 machine. Right now we're watching the number 112 of Walker with the number 769 or 798, I should say, of Jacob Austin. And now Walker realizes that Jacob's there. Jacob is pulled right up alongside him. They're side by side going down that Fabi straightaway. Both of them tucked in, try to make themselves as aerodynamic as possible. And does it work? We're having a look now as Jacob Austin pulls to the inside. Lots of room left there. Swings to the outside and makes the pass on the outside on the exit of turn 11. What a move, Colin.
I'm suspicious Walker looked and thought something had happened and he scrubbed him off, but in fact at the hairpin that the situation was that Walker was on the other side, and maybe for a second that led to Austin letting his guard, Walker letting his guard down on Austin, and it can happen so easily, and looking behind you is so risky because it's very hard to see the big picture. And you know, my philosophy has always been don't look back because that really motivates the guy behind you.
Yeah, quite so. I think if I was inside the helmet of Cameron Walker right now, I would feel even more frustration. I talked about that, the fact that Thomas Kazaz has the lead and Walker's been unable to build into it. Now Jacob Austin has had an insult to injury by taking away second spot from Walker, and Walker may be, as I say, a little frustrated.
Well, and I hope Walker can find his pace because he has been riding well. It's been a pretty good weekend so far. There's another race tomorrow, so this is not a lost cause. You know, it's easy. We're analyzing this race minutely at the front, but it's a strong performance from all three. But I got to say that Austin, you know, when they got to that lapped rider, I don't want to say that Austin was crazy aggressive, but somehow Walker just lost a little bit of pace for a corner or two, and it really went badly for him. I'm sure he's super frustrated right now. And of course, these bikes are so evenly matched. The details are so important. The tires are the same. You know, the Elka rear shock. John Sherrard builds those stock front forks. There's not a lot of difference. I mean, the biggest difference between these bikes is some of them have ABS and some of them don't. The ABS bikes are a little heavier, but their brakes are a little bit better. And of course, if you get into slippery conditions and whatnot, that can be an advantage. But really, these bikes are so evenly matched. Of course, the weight and size of the rider comes into play.
I was just going to comment on that. Indeed, it does, and was going to pass comment on Thomas Kazaz. As a matter of fact, I started calling him the little guy last year because last year he was a little guy, but over the winter months, Colin, I think he's gained about 3 or 4 inches and perhaps another 10 pounds. He's starting to grow a bit.
No, he doesn't look like a little guy anymore. He is a bigger person, and of course we're hoping to see the fields grow with this. You know, Honda have a pretty good program with these bikes, and the kits, the parts and whatnot are very affordable. So I would anticipate, particularly when we get to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, which is always a big round of our series in August, that we're going to see a lot more bikes out there. And of course, we've had the crazy slipstreaming battles there in the spec Honda races.
Look at this battle now starting to heat up between Jacob Austin, a beautiful shot of Austin going through the hairpin there, and Walker right on his tail. There you have a shot of Cameron Walker right in the soft air in behind Jacob Austin, and he swings out to Ryder's left to try to make a pass. They pull up side by side for just a moment, and then Austin keeps the throttle on. If anywhere, I think Walker is losing ground at the end of that back straightaway, and it may be just a case of getting a little better on the brakes.
I think you're right there, Frank, and I also think that it's tricky in terms of trying to break the draft. The rules don't permit weaving, but you can make a move, and I think Austin tried to kind of split the difference. We've joked about that on the back straight with the super bikes that have 180 horsepower. If it's better, race for second on the front straight now. Points, and there we had 2 choices, and it seemed perhaps that Walker gained a smidgen.
Just a smidgen.
Yeah, he's a little closer right now, and we'll see through this sequence.
Well, correct me if I'm error. These riders have been cautioned about changing their riding line over the years to make sure that we don't have any mishaps and what have you, Colin. And yet you mentioned weaving.
Yeah, and of course it's basically weaving is against the rules. You're allowed 1 move, and that's sort of a weave but not weaving. And you're supposed to pass, pull in, and establish your line. And at places like most Motorsport, which are long and fast for these guys, it is an issue. And a couple of times we've had disciplinary concerns. Back in the old days at Race City in Calgary with that gigantic front straight, that's where we really had the struggle with the rules and the drafting and people's behavior in the slipstream, and we saw some pretty crazy stuff there.
Jacob Austin pulling a good line coming out of the hairpin turn, heading to Ryder's right to try to shake off Cameron Walker as best he can. He's well aware that Walker is right there, and Walker is getting, I would think now he's getting a little bit desperate. It's time to make a move. He's not going to be happy with third.
And Austin was to the straight line. Guys to race this year. These are the first points.
Last lap flag is out now. Last lap flag being displayed on the front straightaway. I'll tell you what, though, Austin Jacobs scared the you-know-what out of me with his first run into turn 11 after making the pass on Waller. I thought he had crashed at one point. He flipped the bike in so hard on its side. The Pirelli's hooked up, of course. He inherited second spot, and he's holding on to it thus far. Riders circulating in the 1 minute and 25 second bracket, Colin. They're well off the lap record as set by Ryan Roche last year.
And I think we'll see that the pace improve. We'll get closer to the lap record as we go along throughout the season. Not this lap record, obviously, but the lap records at the other tracks, the other venues on the series. And particularly, it depends on the slipstreaming at a couple of them. That makes all the difference. And I think, really, Frank, that's the difference here. No, nothing to take away from Roche, but he was in the middle of a slipstreaming battle when he set those times, and they can drag each other along and pick up some lap time.
Thomas Kazaz tucked right down below the plexiglass. What a study in concentration this young lad is, Colin. It's one of those situations you hear the phrase often, put a dime on the track, you'll run over it every time. That definitely, and his body English and the way he's performing here today is just outstanding. What a performance.
And certainly if he's made a mistake, we haven't seen it. It's been just about a flawless ride, and the other guys are showing good pace, but here we go, Frank.
Coming down to the finish line, the checkered flag is out, and look at Kazaz, has no one within stabbing distance at all. Still with all, he's got his head straight down, headed towards the finish line, and victory goes to the young lad out of Peterborough, Ontario, on the Peterborough Cycle Salvage sponsored Honda CBR250R. Victory in round one. What a great ride.
And it's interesting to think, Frank, it's happened rarely that someone's won all the races, but you have to win the first one to have a chance to sweep the series. So right now there's exactly one guy who can sweep the series this year, and it's Thomas, and that performance suggests that he has a good chance. Now, 10 races, this is a long series, but it'll be interesting.
It's going to be a long year for the riders indeed. Thomas Kazaz scoring the win here. You can bet for an instance that Cameron Walker will be back with a vengeance in our second round as we head into this 2013 season. But right now we watch as Thomas Kazaz celebrating on the back straightaway. He'll pick up the checkered flag next time around. Now we'll watch as Jacob Austin and Cameron Walker congratulate one another on this, their cool down lap. They had a wonderful battle going on there. I'm sure Walker would have liked to have seen it work out a little differently. And in all honesty, I would have liked to have seen them mix it up a bit more. Colin, I will pass comment. I don't ever remember seeing a Honda CBR, whether it's 125 or 250. I've never seen a race dominated so much by a young rider.
I would have to agree, and it was great to see the camaraderie between second and third. Yeah. Those guys had fun, and it's nice to see them enjoying it, that there's no aggro there. But this is one unbelievable win, frankly, and that he won doesn't shock me. That he won like that is a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, but you can count on it, the fact that the top three finishers would have smiles on their face, but that would also be the case with Matt Chandler as he made his first appearance on the national tour, and certainly the two Bauer boys, Dylan and Jordan Bauer, who had a great battle race long between the two of them. Here now as Thomas Kazaz with his checkered flag, Chris Chappelle, who will be acting as flagman for the Mopar Csbk series for the rest of the year, hands off that flag. And whether Thomas Kazaz gets to do that 9 more times this year or not, Colin, of course, remains to be seen. It's going to be a very interesting season.
And, of course, this is our first national race of the year and our first national weekend of the year. Tomorrow, Sunday at Shannonville, there'll be a lot more races. There'll be another Honda CBR250R race, but, of course, all the other classes, and I think those Superbike guys are going to be out there, too. So a very busy day tomorrow, and the prediction in terms of weather is much better than it has been the last couple of days.
Yeah, today was a bit of a challenge weather-wise and what have you, but certainly, if you look at the overall package, Colin, we ran just a tad late, but everything worked out well. The races were completed in a relatively timely order, and went off with pretty much without a hitch.
And it's good to see Thomas celebrating. He certainly deserves it. And I think obviously the question with the way this series plays out is, can the other guys work together and go after him? If they race each other, they're likely to wind up behind him, I think, again. They need to get together, and if somebody can get in front of him the first couple of laps, that'll make a difference, and then we'll see the slipstreaming and everyone's lap times will come down. But they didn't stay together long enough, and I think we've been spoiled by the action in the Honda Spec series.
Yeah.
So it'd be really nice to, nothing, I don't wish to take anything away from Thomas's performance, but I'm hoping the guys can get organized to put up a little bit more of an opposition.
Well, Thomas likes winning motorcycle races, let there be no secret about that, but he also likes racing. He likes mixing it up out there, so I'm sure he wouldn't object to any comments we make about him having company up front in the future. Well, we'll wind this one down then from Shannonville Motorsport Park as we glance down Hot Pit Road and looked at the superbikes getting ready to come out. And, of course, in amongst those superbikes will be Jody Christie on the Honda CBR 1000. Hats off to Honda for supporting this series, particularly the Honda CBR250 class. Their introduction of the 125 class a few years ago made big changes to this series, and the graduates from these classes have now become professional racers within our series.